Hello, one and all, and welcome to yet another installment of Frivolous Gravitas. I am Christopher Driver, and with me, my loyal co-producer and armchair elocutionist, Mr. Jordan Roy.
You could say that better.
Today, we will be... Oops, smacked the mic during the intro. Today, we will be walking through the reeds and thickets to explore some key concepts on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial spirit. Oftentimes, we find that people have a general sense of malaise or negativity towards people starting small companies or small businesses. A lot of people tend to get discouraged early due to the failure rates and success rates of small businesses. But we would like to try and encourage people to realize that failure itself is not it's not a negative process. It's a learning process. It's more educational, I would posit or suggest that, than actually just studying from a book or going to school, because the active engagement and the risk that's attached to the work that we're doing generally makes us remember our missteps and our faults a lot more readily. So as a learning experience for one, but also as the great equalizer among for income disparity or for minority populations or things like that. It's one of the best ways that we have to diversify the labor pool and the economy and more evenly distribute the wealth and productivity of the labor that's governed from within the society. So we want to sort of encourage entrepreneurship and the spirit along those lines in today's episode. And to get us started, I'll just ask Jordan what his thoughts or feelings are on the state of things as they are, sort of the culture or the way we perceive or sort of look at small businesses or young people starting their own businesses.
Thanks. You mentioned that like it's a good way it's disparity, and it's because entrepreneurship is really interesting, and it's really, like I said, like you said earlier, it's kind of getting like a bit of a short shrift, and this tends to be, in my opinion, there's a lot of things that are, there's better alternatives. It's hard. There's this low success rate, as you said, and there's the spirit of entrepreneurship, not in itself, but is a kind of a casualty or a collateral damage to this, general hate of business and businessmen and people doing business. Well, business is evil. Why would someone want to make money? Well, the thing is that you mentioned the equalization of income disparity. Well, if you want to make money, you could do like one of two things. You could just get other people to pay you, which is not, giving a man a fish, essentially. Or you can go out and just take it. And this is what we see in a lot of immigrant families. They come in and they start like a shawarma shop, or they start, a sushi joint, or they start a
cleaning companies and stuff
cleaning
like that.
company or something to get them going. It's like, well, I'll just do some work that I can do. I'll start a company and we'll just do it. And they just take it. And this isn't theft. This isn't anything. This is them like coming in and taking the money by earning it, because it's there. And then they put their kids through, college like this, or they put their kids through university, and all of a sudden you have this second generation just of immigrants all has degrees and stuff, because their parents come over with all this entrepreneurial spirit. I'll just open a shop. I'll just do this. Well, why? Well, what do you want to be doing? Well, it doesn't matter. What do I need to be doing to survive? Those things aren't mutually exclusive, but they come over here not to be able to have their dreams come true, but to not live in a third world country where they can't even open that shop. Having, that ability to have that entrepreneurial opportunity for them probably is very, very attractive when, all of a sudden there's no point in opening a shop in Central Africa, if some warlord just going to come through and burn the building that your shop's in, or, you know, if there's some racial conflict or some every third week, or if
civil war, terror attacks,
civil war,
like
or like if you're in like Bangladesh and it's just, well, the city's gonna flood again next week. It's like, oh, jeez. Bangladesh is in a very unfortunate geological position.
Yeah.
That poor country, they're doing their best, maybe. So we have this demonization, and I saw this a lot throughout my thing, where you know, you get people saying, well, they're just out for themselves, and this very cynical view of business that we've talked about this before, where it's like, oh, people are just out to make money for themselves. It's like, yes, obviously, but
which people though are you referring to, just to be a little more clear?
I'm really not gonna
mean like names. Our generation, or like school kids, or
our generation, maybe like our like 35 generation, definitely the generation after us, but I'm not going to name names.
I'm wondering where the cynicism sort of comes from. That's sort of what
you see it in the you see it a lot in the media. You know, Mr. Business is always the big bad guy. You get all these portrayals of like the person going into business being evil, and so it makes it so that a lot of people wouldn't want to even get started in a business. I don't want to start a business. Business is bad. I don't want to get this. And this could be some sort of like luxury belief where it's weeding out your competition. You say, oh yeah, don't go into business, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you know, all the other people go off into get a gender studies degree, while you say, it's like, oh, well, no more competition for me.
So it's sort of like the cutthroat portrayal of the profit-seeking motivation.
Yeah.
And you're saying like the businessman is sort of the emblematic boogeyman for all that is evil with money.
Yeah, and we have that in spades, at least since like the 60s. But the definitely since the 80s. But you get also that interacting with the reality of entrepreneurship, and this is why it's not very attractive in the first place. So it's kind of like, okay, you can go to school. Yeah, I want to go to school. I can get a job, but you have to do tons of work. Wait, what? It's like, and this is where it's hard, because like you said, there's a high failure rate. Like a long-term success rate is very, very low. Not only that, but you will be working 100-hour weeks for at least 6 months. If it's a restaurant, that's probably going to go up to a year. You are always on call. You can never put it down. It is not comfortable. You're always interacting with people that you don't want to interact with. You have to talk to suppliers, business, construction people who probably didn't put that, you know, desk that you need at that very specific angle, and now you have to have a fight.
But just to qualify, you're talking about full-time businesses, right? There are part-time businesses people start up on the side.
Yeah, like I've got
as demanding.
I've got 2 of those.
Yeah.
I've got. I don't know. I don't even want to call myself I don't want to toot my horn here and say I'm just a tutor that people hire, but I guess it's a business. But when I'm doing it, I don't have any safety net. I can't go to the government and be like, I lost my job. It's like, because I was employing myself. To the government, it pretty much seems like I might as well be unemployed. And to a lot of people right now, you know, it's like, oh, you're just in between jobs. It's like, no, this is my job. Like, just because someone else doesn't employ me, we've got it into our heads nowadays that what people should be going for is to be employed in a nice, comfortable place. But that really isn't how a lot of people are going to make it in the world. You have to be versatile. Like I got through school, COVID hit right as I was ramping up and putting my resumes out for a bunch of places, and all those jobs dried up. It's a desert. So I have to be versatile, and I have to realize that just because I have a job now doesn't mean I'll have it later. So my safety net is entrepreneurship. So,
yeah.
And this could be as much as like starting your own business, or like even selling the stuff that you already own to some extent. That's probably a short-term entrepreneurship job, but it's still sales, I guess. But or
my
using
uncle used to do it with eBay. He'd buy antiques and stuff from garage sales, and he would sell stuff on eBay for a markup. He had a small business running for a number of years, at least 10 or 15 years.
That's neat. That's really neat.
Yeah.
And he'd probably just like clean them up a bit, get them all photogenic, and then.
Yeah, and he's the type that would actually enjoy the whole process of sleuthing around garbage bins looking for like some farmer's lost relic.
Oh yeah, and there's like in any major, or like you go to any small town in Canada, they'll have like, antique shop, which is just all the stuff from all the farmers just kind of got rid of all their old stuff, and that's actually in the exact spirit I'm talking about. Just someone being like, there's an opportunity here, and it's a small one, but it's still an opportunity. And you put the work in, and you have to set your own hours, and you have to set all the own thing. No one's going to tell you what to do. And I think this is the third quibble is you are in charge. And that means you have to figure out what you need to do next. You can't just rely on somebody to be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, what am I supposed to just tell me what I need to do? And, those students right now who are going through school, the ones who are like, how many pencils are we allowed to bring into the, into the exam? It's like, that's the wrong question.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that to me lately, just having re-registered for school for the first time in 10 years. And the last time I was in school was the first time in 7 years. So every time I go to school, I'm always like behind the ball. But the neat thing is the perspective I gain from that. And the students that I'm constantly surrounded by, especially when I was in courses like economics, it blew my mind how they'd be studying economies of scale and then not realize in their daily life as they leave the classroom how that affects things like their purchases of clothes or cars or movies and things like that. Like they don't take what they're learning into the real world, whereas with business everything you're learning is from the real world. So I find it like a really condensed form of education to practice what you're learning.
Well, even in history, one of the things that we were doing, like economics is the obvious one, but even in history, which seems to a lot of people as a waste of time, and rightly so. There are a lot of people that graduate from history degrees. I'm sorry if you guys are watching, but if you're watching this, I don't consider one of you this, but there's a lot of people that graduate with history degrees that it was a waste of time for them. It was just something to do while they, or something that's expected of them, and they didn't actually need or want a university degree. But you have to, in a history degree, at some point they say, get your own topic. And you have to set your own hours. You have to set your own rules. You have to set your own approach and perspective and, length, structure. All this stuff is all you. They say, come up with a project. And you'll be like, okay, what are the parameters? And they'll be like, it can't be more than this long. So it's a limiting factor. Also, it has to be within this general topic, 19th century Britain. Okay. And then they go. But more and more, this is not becoming the case. I've seen some assignments that were, they give you the topic up until like the third year now. And it's just, well, why? You're not teaching them. You learn more by coming up with your own topic. By running around with your head cut off in that uncomfortable, like, I hate the way this feels way, and that's exactly what you want. I don't know what to do. 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 And eventually you go, I'm going to do this. And then you get good at decision making. You get good at setting your own thing. And that's exactly what you need to do. Because if you're sitting around and you have higher stakes than I just need to figure out this topic, you are 18, you have nothing, no prospects, no nothing. Well, what do you want to do? I'll just start selling stuff, I guess. And this is what a lot of people, this is why you have a lot of foreigners who are entrepreneurs. That sounded like a dirty word. I didn't mean it like that. Immigrants. Okay, there's PC culture coming into the conversation, I guess. They come in and they have that they probably have that deer in the headlights. Like, oh no, what do? I need to make money now. Like, I'm here. I have to do something about it. I have to do something about my situation, or my family's going to suffer. And then they do something. They start something because they have to. And that's that lack of safety net. And what happens is an empty shop in a community gets taken up. There's clean windows there. There's new paint job on one of the buildings, and suddenly this desperation has turned into a benefit for the whole community. And this is why we should be encouraging this, because even just someone selling stuff on eBay makes, now someone has a lamp that they never would have thought of getting, or now they have something.
It's a big part of ESG too. Like the green economy, you want to reuse and resell used items so that they don't end up in landfills. So there's actually like a greater social purpose too and function to this type of like sales. Or with the small shop, like you're noting, it actually increases the property values of everybody in the neighborhood if you have less abandoned storefronts, right?
Yeah.
So there's all these small little sort of collateral benefits that you get from all the businesses next door to the shop that opens as well, and to the residents and to the landowners around that strip.
Yeah, and we can't rely on others to do it. Like it's nice for us to get it, but like there's people actually going out and doing this. And
it seems like people are they want the glamour, sort of. When they want to start a small business, they want to be able to say they're doing a job that's glamorous, rather than saying like, my business is to pick up garbage after other construction companies. Like, that's a really valuable business to have.
Well, it's glamour, but I think a good word for it also is honor. It's honorable. Like, you go and say, well, I started my own business, but, or like you get that guy, it's like, I started my business when I was 23 and now I'm still working it. It's hard work, but it's like, that's an honorable sentence to speak.
Yeah, I think you misunderstand what I was saying though.
Yeah, sorry.
People who start small businesses are looking for the glamour. And I think that's part of their cynicism, is that they only want to start jobs that are really pretty or sound good or make them look flashy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an investment banker, or I'm a web developer, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a 3D artist or something like that.
Yeah, and those types are the types that put the cart before the horse, where they're like, oh, well, to be a web developer, you need to have a web developer studio. It's like, no, you need a room with an internet connection and a plug,
a laptop and a mouse.
That's all you need. Like, go. And it's like, well, no, I need to have this, and I need to have, I need to have a room. And it's like those kids that, their parents buy them the studio for their whatever. And it's like, oh, I have a studio downtown. And it's just like, no, you got to put the work in. You got to understand. You have to grok the problem that you are going in to solve. This is not something that's a pastime. This is something that becomes you. And you need to put it in. And like, this is the hard work alternative. And I think maybe this may come across as like, oh, people aren't working hard anymore. But honestly, they're not. In the last year and a half, people just are being told, don't work hard. Well, like, you have to just sit here. It's like, well, more constraints, work hard within these new rules, I guess. But, and it's harder. It definitely is harder. But that doesn't mean we should stop just because COVID is happening. It's like, it just means we have to get more creative. And I think people are scared of the unpretty jobs. Like, to me, a really good business, this is probably just my background in real estate and property management, but to me, a really good business is like window washing, gutter cleaning, pressure washing siding, like clearing out debris. Apparently is terrible. Like, apparently it's just unreason. Like, apparently it's oh wait, sorry, I just called it because a lot of people have a fear of heights.
But I don't mean high rises or skyscrapers or anything. Yeah. You can just go door to door to like street level places and ask for like, all of my companies that I've worked at, we've had a petty cash drawer, and anytime somebody comes by to clean the windows, $10 cash within to the reason. Window cleaner. Like,
if they're the ones who dirty them, I'm just beat them off with a bat. But like, no, I used to
just routine maintenance jobs like that are really good businesses. Cleaning jobs.
Well, I saw there was a house for sale on 101 Street here near where I live in Edmonton. 101 Avenue. They're all the same Street Avenue. And I saw that there was a house for sale and the front wasn't mowed. And I thought I could just call this guy. I could just go around with a mower, which I have, and in the back of my car, and just be like, call these guys up and be like, yo, $20 to mow this lawn right now. Your house that you're selling looks disgusting. I'll mow it right now if you e-transfer me $20. I'll give you a before and after picture. And I just go do that and I could probably make $100 a day.
Yeah. And that's not even joking. Like, you could literally do that for a living and just do pickup jobs every single day. I mean,
just like
it's a bit stressful because you don't know for sure that you've got income that day because you're constantly picking up work the day of. But once you get ahead and you've got a bit of a buffer zone, then you don't have to worry so much about 1 or 2 days without working.
And I think, it is stressful. And that's why people shy away from it, because a lot of people don't want stress. They're shying away from stress. They're not used to doing things that are difficult. But at the same time, it does take a bit of that, you have to display a certain amount of cojones because you are putting yourself out there. You can't be passive when you're doing this. It's like, oh, well, I'm a passive person. It's just like, no, that doesn't matter. I've met some passive people that have been business owners. There's a wonderful woman who I would not call aggressive in any way that owns a bubble tea shop on White Ave here. And like, she just tries stuff, but this is a person that probably pushes herself beyond her comfort level and has gotten used to it, and now just says, oh, I made a new tea here, you try it. And this is what we want. And she's living her dream. She's got like the most adorable bubble tea joint I've ever seen.
So I think we need to reinforce that pride of ownership, though. So rather than people being focused on the job that they're doing being pretty and glamorous, like I'm a painter, I'm a web developer, I'm a car specialist or something like that. Yeah. We need to make it sexy to have like, I clean up garbage, I do dump runs, I'm a courier.
Mike Rowe did that for a while in his like Dirty Jobs show. And he was really good at that, kind of saying like, there's people that like crawl around in the tunnels underneath our like cities, literally caked in like manure, like human feces, and they have pride in their jobs. And he's like, why? Because they are doing their job and they know that they're good at it, and they know that society relies on it. There's meaning in there. And his Dirty Jobs show really did put that spotlight on these people. And he actually would just go into these jobs, and it's just like, the waste treatment facility. I remember once there was one on where he's just kind of like, the guy's like, this is a room, and he opens it up and it's just this room full of crap, like literal like flushings. And they're just like, all right, grab that hose, let's clean this room. And they just hose down the room, and there's just like chunks the size of my entire body just coming off, and somebody has to do that now. So that other entrepreneur can see that and be like, I can automate that. And it's like, oh no, that guy's job's gonna be gone. Well, no, that guy can go find a job where he's not dealing with feces, and he can probably find one, because if the spirit we're talking about, there's always something that needs to be done. And that's one of the key things. But this pride that you talk about, if it's not a false pride, it's definitely there. And we've said this before when we talk about like, there's nothing wrong with becoming a plumber or something like that. There's nothing wrong with becoming a carpenter, because we need those people. And just because you're not getting a university degree, well, whatever, who cares? Do you actually need a university degree? Like, really? Is it really necessary for what you want to do in the future? If you actually think education is important, bookstores are cheap now. Go grab some. Go pirate some audiobooks. Like, it's there for you. But you can take pride in a job well done, no matter what that job is. Yeah.
But the thing is, we're not.
There's a few exceptions. I'm the best SS Oberst Sergeant in the. It's like, okay, maybe that guy, not so much. But
But like there's a very limited number of jobs that people are like, I'm a skydiving instructor, like that are super fun jobs, or I'm a stunt driver or something like that. You know, the rest of humanity, the other 99.9% of people have to do jobs that aren't like they're not super over the top enthusiastic about. But what really matters though is what the mentality they bring to the job. So when they show up at work, regardless of whether you're working in like a flooring company or as a plumber or just doing dispatch or working for 911 emergency, like everybody has a place. And it's not that one is more useful than another, because like an ambulance driver still needs their garbage picked up, and they need painters to fix up their house, and they need landscapers. And so like every job isn't one more important than the other. Every job is equally important and valid. And I think that's what we need to take pride in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what people see in people working their own jobs is like, I met a lot of painters. And a lot of them are like, this is my job, I do a good job. And some of them, when you see, it's like, you're not seeing a lack of pride in their work. You're not seeing the travails of entrepreneurship. You're seeing alcoholism. And that's the negative you're seeing. It's the person, it's not the job. And a lot of times, if we tell these people that their job, well, they should have gotten this, or the tradies are dumb or something, or, contractors are just the worst people on the planet, which I've definitely heard this before. And, after a day of selling paint to them, sometimes I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to talk to another contractor for at least a week. They're not bad people. Some of them definitely were. Pete. Name names there.
I'm calling you out, Pete.
Damn it, Pete. If that guy's still alive, I'll be surprised. Just
and the same goes for all businesses too. Like I've seen tons of really successful businesses even ripping off insurance companies and the government and doing deals under the table, and they're stealing work from other contractors. Like I've seen a lot of really disreputable junk in the business sector. And I feel like they sort of fly under the radar because they're small. They can kind of get away with more than a really heavily regulated larger company could.
Get like we're gonna start a call center, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna cheat people out of their money. And like you definitely see entrepreneurs like this, like dishonest entrepreneurs, and this I do not condone. Like or like people who, I don't know, farm Bitcoin or something and then brag about not having to do a single day's work. Now I'm not against like Bitcoin farming, but if you brag about not doing a single day's work, you are a scum of the earth. Bye.
Or if you're scalping GPUs for a year.
Yeah. It's like,
that's non-productive labor to just scoop up a whole bunch of GPUs and then sell them for a 300% markup.
And what you're trading pride in your work for money, because the person who puts all the power lines up says, I put all these power lines up. You're saying I've got money in it and you need to try. Who am I going to respect? And this is the thing, is like, I don't care how much money you have. Just because you have money doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to respect you.
And it doesn't make you a better businessman to have a more lucrative business model either. If you scrub toilets for a living, I will give you more respect than if you trade currencies for a living, because there's absolutely no value being added to the economy by trading currencies.
Or selling something while the market is low. You're not going to be making money. I can respect you for keeping up the fight and getting till the market turns around in your favor. It's like, well, I'm a very successful businessman. Why? Well, you're not making money. Well, he's not making money now.
Yeah.
But he's
investments are long-term things.
I can respect hard work. And one of, I guess, honesty comes into that. I'm going to move forward a bit, because the spirit of entrepreneurship, I think, I'm going to get a bit philosophical here, involves, it's kind of, how do I say this? It's the tool that our society relies on to a massive extent. And the reason we're putting so much emphasis on this today, on this one thing that seems small, it's just people coming up with ideas and starting their own jobs, which we can all, like, we've understand that, like, why this is good. You're enhancing small business, you're contributing to the lessening of broken windows theory stuff, all this. But the reason why we place such an emphasis, especially on this culture, when you couldn't in a feudal culture or a communist culture or a fascist culture or a broken culture or any really pre-modern culture. Excuse me, I need a bit of water. I got a bit of a frog. Technical difficulties. So is that it utilizes two of the tenets of our society that we hold to be most dear. The first one of these is freedom. You need the freedom to be able to start a business. You can't do entrepreneurship in a non-free place. The state will, okay, you are now the bread maker because, you've been decided by, Moscow or Beijing to be the bread maker. You are now this. Congratulations. Except not congratulations, because congratulations are a hierarchy and hierarchies are bad. No, none of that. In a fascist culture, it's like your family is the bread makers. It's the pure bread makers come from families of bread makers. It's like there's no freedom there. And in our society, which emphasizes this freedom so much, it's like this, I know I'm flag waving a bit. It sounds like it when you just say the word freedom. This is how cynical we've become as a society.
This is how I become cynical.
But the thing is that this is not a trivial concept. I need the freedom to be like, I'm good at talking. I'm good at history. I should teach, but I don't want to teach there. I can't get a job in the school system because I don't have my teaching certificate, which I'm seeing is less and less necessary. I'm just going to put an ad out. Now I have 5 students. Now I'm teaching kids. And the more I do it, the better I'm getting. So that was an exercise of my freedom. But we don't just need a whole bunch of people going, I'm going to become a teacher, even though we do have too many of those.
You can never have too many teachers.
They graduate so many. It's like the market. Like I know what we said in the last 3 episodes, but anyway. It
just means we have to fund more teaching programs. That's all. Your country's much better off with too many teachers, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I see what you're getting at, though.
Yeah. So what we need is people to come up with a bunch of different ideas, and this is the other thing: is diversity. And this isn't diversity of skin color. No, I'm sorry, we don't care what color you are. Do a good job. Be a good person. It's diversity of experience. Well, we all have different experiences. Diversity of viewpoint. Well, yeah, but your viewpoint brings with it something particular. It brings with it a particular set of skills that you can be used to, now instead of being forced to be a bread maker, you can make the decision freely to use your diverse individual skills and background to now bring bread to the market in your own way, which again increases the diversity. Now we have not only another bread maker, but we have a bread maker that's unique. It's got its own little aesthetic going. It's got its own type of bread, something that's that everyone can be like, oh, I've tried these ones, but have you tried these ones? Something different, something new that we haven't seen before. And now you're adding not only to the bread market, you're adding to the community, you're adding to all these things. And now we have a greater diversity in our consumption behaviors, because you've used your freedom to not only leverage your diversity, but enhance the diversity in the system, making everyone's life better. So in our society, which is, yes, individualistic, which again is cynically everyone thinks is a bad word, but with individuality, we can have this diversity, and with freedom, we can use our individuality. So in a democratic society, this is almost a necessity for us to be like, okay, go forth and see what you guys can do. And then we all just go forth, and chaos happens, and it's messy as hell, because democratic societies are always messy. But if you sit back long enough, you'll find some pretty darn miraculous things happening, and things that everybody loves. Baked XX, like Edmonton doesn't have a place like Baked Expectations in Winnipeg. It's the best cake shop in Winnipeg. Fight me. And it's just some people who started a bake shop in the like 80s, and their model is different than anything I've seen, and it's quaint as heck, and they have made great cake. So I go there, and it makes the city a better place because it exists. So
I think one of the other benefits you get from that type of diversity is like the enrichment of everybody's life. Because I don't mean to put like too big of a punctuation on this, but the fact that we have the variety we have for healthy foods encourages us to eat healthy food. So if you have a bread shop that's selling all types of like sprouted loaf bread, rather than just getting the preservative filled Wonder Bread from 7-Eleven or something, you know what I mean? There's a vastly different nutritional content between a baker's spelt loaf and Wonder Bread white bread from the store. So it's like there's actually like a health component to the entire community, as well as like the unique atmosphere, the unique recipes, the choices, the options, the communication between the business owner and the customers, and like that fluid dynamic, I think, is what enriches our culture, broadly speaking. Even if they're just a neighborhood coffee shop, I think having a bunch of neighborhood coffee shops in a bunch of neighborhoods makes a city. That's what makes like what I love most about New West and Vancouver is just there's 6 coffee shops on every corner. Like notoriously downtown, there's a Starbucks on both corners of the street. But a diversity of coffee shops is way more fulfilling. Like you can try something that actually changes your day rather than just doing a mundane routine. And I think that's one of the things I love most about these small mom and pop shops is just that variety.
Well, and you get places like barber shops and hair salons, and like you can go to a chain which just hires, you know, the
hourly non-entrepreneurs.
Those ones who just like a cut hair, and or the ones who just graduated, and they work for a while, and you get like a okay cut. But like what happens is, especially, and actually that's a really good example, is that you get a person who will start their own, I want to go make my own thing, and it doesn't take much, which is why it's probably a good sector for it, is because you need a chair, you know, you need the tools, which you need to buy anyways to get in.
And usually they'll rent out that space from another barbershop, because the barbershops are almost never full. So they'll have like 3 chairs in the back where private people rent it out Monday, Wednesday, Friday kind of thing.
Yeah. And what happens is it's a job where you can just be like, okay, I'm the resource. They're coming for me for my skills. So I could own my own place, and you get them dreaming about having their own place, and they start thinking about, you know, and this isn't like idle thought. This is like, oh man, what would my store look like? What would I call it? You know, like a teenage girl dreaming about her wedding. Like these aren't idle thoughts. They're planning. And it's planning that they enjoy. And then after a while, they're just like, I'm going to do it. And then all of a sudden we have a new barbershop, and all the people that like them go to them. And,
but to me, what's really key is that they become, conscious of their branding and the quality assurance and their customer satisfaction, because it's meaningful to them to have their business succeed, as opposed to punching a clock where you just like, people are going to come whether you want them to or not. You just cut your hair and get out. It's a totally different approach to work. You don't get a fulfilling, like a sense of fulfillment coming out of a long day of work when you're not caring about your brand or quality of your work, or if you're just trying to get numbers through, right?
Well, and if you do a bad job in a large company can be like, we'll just absorb it. I don't want to have to deal with firing this guy, blah, blah, blah. But if you're owning yourself, because like there's a lot of, if you have a job, you have, like if you have you go get a job for somebody, they might not want to fire you for screwing up because of all the things like the payouts, and they have to do like match CP, like all the stuff that you have to do when you fire somebody. But if you're running it yourself, you don't have that safety net, and the company doesn't have that safety net because you are the company. If you screw up, that's $100 that you're missing a week, or that's, if it's like if it's a mechanic shop, it's a couple $1,000 you're missing a week. I don't know actually how pricing and car mechanicing works. If any of you know, he'll leave us a long message. But the thing is that if you screw up, if you're rude to a customer or something, then that's money that you just don't have now. If I get sick and I can't teach, that's money I don't have. And I have to either try, which I did this summer, and it was, I did my best and it was satisfactory. And I'm probably not going to get that thing again, but I had the myocarditis from the vaccine, but I did my best. And they knowingly said, okay, we're still going to keep you on, but I'm not getting that contract again, straight up. And so that's a loss to me from the smallest thing, and a pebble to a corporation is a boulder to a entrepreneur. And this is why you get a lot of failing, because one misstep and you could go under, and you don't know what that is at all. You can apply to get, I guess, financial assistance, or not financial assistance, financing from the financial sector, who can invest in you and take the risk off to some extent. But then at the same time, you have to get the confidence in a financier to actually put forward that money to alleviate that risk. So it all comes down to, is what you're putting into your brand and what you're putting into your work going to be accepted by market coming in? Are they going to come back? And so you worry about these things and you push harder, knowing that you're not going to push that hard if if it's somebody else's business. If you're not going to push that hard, which is why when you work for these mom and pop shops and they freak out at you for being like, why are you doing this? I can't believe that. And you're just like, I don't care. It's like, that's why they're freaking out because they might be making a lot more money than you, but that could change very quickly.
And usually it's like their home or something that's on as collateral for any financing they get, right? Like it's
Right.
very personal to a small business owner, whereas like shareholders aren't even party or to participate in those types of discussions, because those are just costs that a manager deals with and prints reports for. But I mean, you've got some personal experiences, so do I, dealing with small businesses and working in a small business right from teenage years. Mm-hmm. So my background was web design. While I was in high school, I had a little web design company. And my issue with customers was I was so obsessed and focused on the quality assurance of my brand that I couldn't price my services adequately to make it worthwhile, because I'd go above and beyond trying to cater myself and sacrifice my own time and labor to satisfy customers' unrealistic expectations. I was young and naive, and I really wanted the approval, but you had a different setting. Your background was more in like a retail than services. So what was your experience like in operating a small business as a teenager?
Oh yeah, that's right. I was running a video store. A lot of that was just staying apprised of the market, being pleasant. I made a lot of missteps because I was.
You might have to explain what a video store is for our younger audience.
Yeah. Well, you used to have to go out and rent the movies because they weren't in the cloud, which is honestly a better market. But like, I mostly oversaw the liquidation of a couple of video stores, not to my. I remember having to be creative. It actually helped me be very creative, because I had to think about ways like to make this, regrettably, at my time, dying sector, to be profitable. But like, people weren't coming anymore because Netflix was picking up. You started getting internet piracy, which honestly I couldn't, for some reason, even though I was running the business, I couldn't fault people for doing. I didn't really have much like, how dare you, how dare you should be spending money at my store. It's like, but I can't say that because I'm a free actor in the world, and I'm just like, they are the ones who decide to use their money. They don't have any obligation, and I'm not entitled to my customers. And so if the market says it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. So, but while it was on, I had to make a lot of decisions. And anyone who's run anything, you say, okay, I need this. What's going to come? I have to almost try and read the future.
But you dealt with staffing. You dealt with like merchandising because you had, gums and Tic Tacs and shit at the front desk, I think, didn't you?
Guns?
No, gum.
Gums. Yeah. Gums. Yeah.
Gun store.
Luckily, like Old Dutch all like took care of like a lot of themselves, and they would just come in. They'd be like, they would read the future, and that was one of their things that they would do.
But the meta of it, I mean, like you understand the background knowledge of the business as opposed to just like the jobs I had other than my private jobs was like working in a call center. And the only thing I learned was to read a script and like speak it. That's it.
Oh, God. But like, that's the thing. I had to know, like when you work the thing, you had to know the point of sale system. And like, I had to watch every single movie that came through that place.
Supply chains and copyright issues and pricing and when to sell, overstock. I had to like keep an eye on certain like entertainment news, which I absolutely hated. And like I wouldn't watch Entertainment Tonight or any garbage like that, but I had to like know at least who the actors were and stuff like that. So it was interesting. It was hard and easy at the same time, strangely, because I knew once I got the flow of it, it was really interesting. But I knew the flow also was very dangerous, because like once you get into the flow, it gets easy, and then it becomes harder to change because you do need to change. People, especially in a retail thing, people, if something's the same, if something's not novel, then they'll just kind of they'll delete it from their mind and won't come back. But then I had to make the thing saying, well, this is winding down. The customers are not coming back, and we probably stayed open as a family business too long. Probably, I'd say about 6 months longer than we should have. But that's a decision that we needed to make, and like everyone needs to make those decisions. And it's just like investing like in a giant investment firm where you're like, buy low, sell high. And it's just like, okay, we bought at a good time and we needed to sell earlier. We sold when it was too low. We should have sold earlier. And you just have to keep in mind that your business is not eternal, I guess, as well. Well, how about knowing that and having gone through those experiences and with that little bit of background for us, how does that compare to like the modern day romantic being exploited by Uber or Lyft, where they say you can be your own boss and your own manager, and after you like factor in costs and time, people are making like $3 an hour as Uber drivers or Lyft drivers? I think with those, it's a lie because, well, it's obviously a lie. And you can be your own thing, or with the skip the dishes thing, because you're actually still an employee. Like you're not actually making decisions. Like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I work for Lyft, or I work for Skip the Dishes. It's like, no, you're a subcontractor. Like, yeah, and Uber actually lost that in court now. They are deemed employees, but that was how they were trying to get around not paying like payroll taxes and all this other type of stuff, is by saying they're not technically our employees, they're subcontractors. And then to get people to do it, they would say, be your own boss, make your own hours. And people would be losing money and depreciating their vehicles and not doing their own accounting properly because they don't know any better. And like that type of entrepreneurship, I think, adds to people's discontent or their disenfranchisement with being small startup businesses. I think that leads to it. Do you think? Yeah. There's a lot of people, well, they're using that spirit to do it, but like, there's someone in my family, I don't know if I want to out them, but someone I know started their own business, and they're really good at that business. And they made a few missteps, not bad ones. They're still going to have a business. It's just there's certain things that you need to know while doing a business. And I'm lucky because I married into a family with a number of accountants in it, and I didn't know anything. I just like, I'll start a business, people pay me, and I spend the money because I made it.
like any normal, sane individual would think. But apparently there's this thing called taxes. And the more I work for myself, the more taxes become a theft. Start wanting to raise that "don't tread on me" flag.
All the more reason to get taxes lowered by making those who can afford it pay their fair share. They just released a report, a couple days ago. 8% was the average marginal tax rate for companies making over $1 million. And then the average marginal tax rate of everybody else in the entire country was like 40%, 38%.
Yeah, I still
when you
don't
count in like sales tax and property tax and income tax.
I still don't think I make enough money to pay taxes.
No, you probably don't.
But the rich definitely pay more taxes than me.
But your taxes are lower if they pay just the same amount as you. They don't even have to pay like a ton more. If they just paid the 22% that would break even between the rich and the poor, if they just paid 22% instead of 8%. Like your taxes, instead of being 40%, would be 22%.
You know what would be even better is if all the people watching went and watched our episode on fair tax. Yeah. Go do that right now. Just pause this, go watch the fair tax one, and then come back. And then, So, but it's hard because you just got this, the problem with tax is that you have this Byzantine nightmare regulation monster, that doesn't make any sense.
And they don't teach it in high school, oddly enough.
No, it's just like you need to know this in order to do anything with your life. It's like, just, glance at it. And it's just this thick book that everyone's afraid of.
They'll teach everybody trigonometry, but they won't teach them taxes. It just
Or like law. It's like, how does the law work? And it's just like...
And everybody needs to sign a lease or a loan agreement or buy a car or something. There's law involved and nobody knows what they're doing or how to read it.
I learned more about the law by getting parking tickets. And and I think I learned so much about the law buying my first like restricted firearm, because it's just like, well, you need to do this, and the guy behind the counter is just speaking lawyerese. I'm like, dude, you're retail. I'm just like, okay, I'm taking notes. Like, what do I need to do? And they give me like this brochure, and it's literally 3 pages long saying what I need to do.
Well, even just like cell phones, imagine, or like gaming consoles. Imagine if you had to read the terms of service every time you had an update. You'd never be able to play or use your phone because you'd just constantly be reading through legalese.
Yeah, you don't own your Steam games. But it's that kind of thing is like, if you're playing a game on Steam, it doesn't really matter. It's there, but it doesn't matter. Because you're not going to care once you beat the game or once you're done with it or something, or as long as it's working. Or if they try to charge you again for playing it, or like have a subscription service or something, and the legal stuff changes, and it's like, what, you want to pay $40 again for the game? No. And then you look at the legal stuff and you're like, oh, this is terrible. And then you riot because your fun is impeded. But if you're running a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be aware of the legal implications of everything you're doing. Like if you're grooming dogs, it's a shout out. My sister grooms dogs. Go, if you need your dog groomed.
Links in the description.
Yeah. Should. But she's really good at it. But you need to be aware of that kind of stuff. Or if you're doing something like that's not that legally onerous. But if you're selling firearms, you need to know the legal stuff. If you are an accountant, you need to know aware of the tax thing. Or if you are trading in certain in financial sectors, if you don't know the economics behind what you're doing, you can have a bad time. So these are the things you need to be expert at. And I think we do give a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays short shrift about this, because a lot of them seemingly who just, put sandwiches together or something seem like, well, they know what sandwiches. It's like, no, like they know what they're doing. If they've been around more than 10 years, then they have become expert at these.
Just by proxy. Yeah. Whether they got a degree or not, they know it. Yeah.
So a lot of times this is a hurdle. Like, oh, I don't want to deal with taxes. I don't want to deal with that. That sounds hard. I gotta get a lawyer. What? It's like, this is the prices you pay. This is why you make all those big profits, because you aren't getting those benefits, because you aren't getting that. And you need to know all this other stuff that, a big company will have a legal department that you can rely on, but you are your legal department if you're in business for yourself.
That's sort of why you make more money too, right? Like you're reclaiming the value of your own labor when you're working for yourself. Because when you work for another company, they have to pay you less than the money that you produce or generate. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business, right? They have to turn a profit. But in return, they get all those, like they have a legal department, an accounting department. They get high-grade professionals who are highly competent at managing your business for you. And that's sort of why you get paid less than if you were working for yourself. So it makes sense to have that offset or difference between self-employed and being employed. But I think what you're getting at is that people are discouraged immediately before looking into things. They think automatically, oh, this legalese stuff sounds so complicated that I'll never understand it, and they just don't try. And I think that's probably the biggest problem I see with most startup businesses is people who are prepared to operate and run their own business, whether it's making doll clothes or shoveling driveways. Their instinct that stops them almost all the time is going to be, I don't know enough about this, or I'm not good enough at this. And to me, that's just a false pretense, because nobody's good at anything they start. You get good by starting and then doing it.
Yeah, I was okay at teaching, and I've definitely gotten better. Oh boy.
But I think that's worth underscoring, because I hear, and I love business startups. So everybody I meet since I was a kid, I've always tried to encourage them to start businesses, just because I like starting companies, but I hate running them. I hate the grueling tediousness of following a procedure or protocol, but I love developing the training manual and the protocol for other people to follow. I just like the newness of it.
Consultant.
Yeah. And I used to do a lot of consulting too when I was out in BC. That was actually my only successful business, technically. But I think it's important though, because I don't know that people recognize how common that feeling is, that discouragement from starting because they don't know enough. And I think that's completely a washed out notion that shouldn't even exist, because nobody knows anything until they start. That is the way of learning, is to start doing something you don't know how to do. And that's how you learn.
And this is kind of why I brought up, like, we need to get used to not being comfortable, because where I'll get told that we're special as kids, which was BS. We're just all people. We're little meat bags. But if you get too comfortable, you're not going to be doing anything. Everything becomes something somebody else does. And I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't willing to just, do that hard stuff, to do all that stuff that you hate. And this is one thing I bring up in a number of episodes. You've probably heard me say this, is that there's something tedious about every single job. Every job is something tedious, but there's always something to redeem it. If there's nothing to redeem it, go get a different job. It probably means it's, you've got bad employees, but it's
or that job's meant for somebody else. Like somebody else will enjoy it more than you.
Or like, my wife is doing certain practicums. She goes from one place and she'll just come home being like, oh, I hate everything about this. I don't even want to be the pharmacist anymore. And she'll go work at another place and be like, man, we had so much fun at work today. It's like, it's almost as if you like your job and the people suck. So like the people matter, but if you like the people and the job sucks, you can do the job. It just, like, unless it's really bad. I've had a lot of jobs where it's just like, I absolutely hate this job when certain people are around, and I absolutely love the job when other people are around. It's like, maybe I like the people and not the job. And then, so that matters. You have to be aware of yourself with this, and self-awareness is important. And again, this comes down to, like, what are you willing to go through to do it? And because the other thing is, I guess you're going to have to do some gosh darn distasteful things. Firing people is not hard. Hiring people is fun. Oh, look, I get to look through all these resumes. I'm going to give someone some opportunity. Look at this idiot. Didn't even write it down. He's misspelled 7 words, shred. It's fun. And then you hire them. It's like, congratulations. Welcome to the team. 2 weeks later, get out of my office. That's something you have to do. You hire 10 people, you fire 6, and like two leave because they go off to do some other opportunity that, in all honesty is better for them. One stays and another one stays that you think, dude, go to school, you shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And then you end up with one person that's worth it. That's honestly, that happens in every business because people move around because they have that thing called freedom. And they have the freedom to make their life better.
And although that becomes a risk to a business owner, it's also part of the elation from it. One of the things I liked about being self-employed is that the feeling you get when you get a contract, when you're working for someone, it's like, oh, more work. They're trying to overload me and I can't handle all this. And your pay stays the same. But when you're working for yourself, every contract you get is like a pay increase.
Yeah, it's like
you actually feel glad to be getting work. Whereas when you're an employee, you're never glad to be getting more work.
Well, and you've seen this. I'll get a contract. I'll get a new employee and I'll be like, oh, I've got another student. And I'll come on and I'll tell everybody it's like, I got another job. That's what it feels like, it's the same job. And it feels good. And it feels like, oh man, I got more on my plate. This is awesome. And that's exactly what happens. Some days it's just like, oh, I've got so much on my plate. But then you're like, I'm going to make so much money.
And there's this general sense of satisfaction, though, from the fruits of your labor, because you actually get to enjoy it. You get to choose what you're reinvesting, what you're putting into your pocket, what goes out as a bonus to your employees. You get to give people an extra vacation day or two just to be nice. You can start projecting your integrity into the world around you when you're operating a business.
And you watch them use the money that they earned from you to go to school or buy a dog or, oh, you're mute. You have become mute, destroyer of sound.
I was just saying, or you watch them buy a house or feed their kids or something. Yeah. It's a rewarding process to pay somebody voluntarily as opposed to having to pay people as an accounts payable. Bill.
And it hurts even more when you see your employees do stuff they overfeed their kids and they buy a dog that they abuse, and you're just like, don't you get it? I'm invested in your life. And so you want, you are it's kind of a cliche because you have those people I put 30 kids through college and everyone in school hated that guy. Everyone hated that guy. He was such a jerk. It's he's just this capitalist saying he ran a steel mill or something and he gave people opportunities. Why didn't he just pay them to go to school? It's because nothing's free. Because he's running a business. He's not running a charity. But he's still proud of the fact that the people that he employed went on to get an education in something more than what they were doing. Because it doesn't matter. You're not leaving him behind saying, oh, I'm done with the steel mill industry. I'm going to go do something more important like gender studies or something stupid like that. And it doesn't matter because they made more of themselves through you. And this is kind of that whole thing about investing in the people around you. With action, you have I think it was Thomas Jefferson. No, it wasn't Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Franklin who said, how do you make a friend? He's get them to do something for you. And so he would be his worst political enemies, he'd be like, hey, can I borrow a book? And he'd get them to do something for him. So I need to borrow a book from you. So, they give him a book and then he'd borrow another book and be then he'd talk to him about that thing. All of a sudden they'd be asking questions and writing him letters and it's just be loser. Now we're friends.
Developing relationships.
Because relationships aren't just, it's give and take. It's not relationships aren't just free on both sides. A relationship isn't a free thing. A friendship is something that has to be cultivated, just like love isn't free either. You have to, it feels good to work at it, but it's something you have to put effort into. You have to actually write that stupid poem and recite it. You have to show it and do gestures and all this thing. You have to invest yourself in other people and they have to invest themselves in you. And when everyone's invested in each other, they actually give a crud about what's going on. So this is why you get people who are loyal to corporations. It's because they're invested in that corporation, because they care, because their effort's gone into that. They don't want to see that effort wasted. Nobody wants to see that effort wasted. Which is why when you work somewhere that doesn't like treat you as if they're investing in you and you're investing in them, it's a mutual exchange. It's not, nothing's free, but it's not one-sided either. And so when a company is just like, whatever, you're just an employee, like the employee is just like, wait, what the heck? I'm not just an employee, I'm me. Like, I'm putting my time in here and you're just an employee, like stay in the back, I don't need your input. And it's when
and that's sort of what I mean, how it gets fulfilling too. Because like when you're working for yourself, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get that sense of fulfillment. Whereas when you're working for a company, it's not quite guaranteed. Like you can try to have pride in your work and do the best you can and always be productive and contribute to the company's success. But whether they acknowledge that or not is completely up to them, and it's beyond your control.
Well, it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't even have to be anything like we value all of our employees. It's just like, that's the opposite of what
those.
It's like, it's your boss being like, hey, you did a good job last Tuesday, thanks. And you just be like, you just leave going like, I did it. I did a good job last Tuesday.
And it's all those simple little things with employees. Like when you use another employee's good job as an example to another employee to teach them, and they overhear it just like in passing, like you can do all these like little subtle psychological tricks that just give people that little like endorphin boost, and that, you know, that they're positively engaged in your success as well as you being engaged in theirs. It's that reciprocal nature like you were talking about.
It's not like some office space thing where everyone has cake day and it's like that's their employee appreciation thing where they're just doing the minimum. It's like actually having a relationship with the people that you're employing and are employing you. And that's like, you can't have like if you're working for Amazon, you can't have a relationship with Jeff Bezos. But the thing is, you can have a relationship with your direct superior and your direct inferiors, because how do you call them inferiors? It's like, come on, speak English. But their relationship can be there. And we work in relationships. When you're self-employed, you have to form these relationships with the people you're hiring and your customers.
It's not, you're rewarded for it. That's all.
No, well, it's one way of looking at it, but I'm not saying it's even like I need to cultivate a relationship with everyone that comes in the door. But no, the relationship is, hey, you're a customer. Oh, hey, you're a store owner. Hey, we're buying something from each other. Bye. That's it. That's the relationship. That's literally it. Or like,
but the nice thing is you have control of that. Like it's within your purview to actually affect change into the culture of your company when you own the company.
Or with employees,
whereas when you're working for someone else,
understanding that they have kids, like merely the fact that you understand have kids is an enhanced relationship. It's like, why do you need time off? Well, my kids are sick. Well, you have kids? Well, we need you to work. It's like, you understand when hiring someone, but the part knowing that they have kids and knowing at least the names of the kids, like you don't need to do much to have a relationship. Like I have a relationship with the person that I see at the grocery store every time. I don't know his name, but he's like, he recognizes my face. I recognize his face. We go, hey, and he'll be like 15:30 and I'll be like, beep, see ya. Relationship achieved. It doesn't have to be like, I don't have to know his inner workings and he doesn't need to know mine. And really that's too far. But when I say relationship, I mean just a basic understanding.
Yeah, that smile and nod that just
the roles
brightens your day kind of thing.
Yeah. And knowing that my employer understands just at least my situation, or at least like, oh, he's going to school, right? Yeah, that's, good for him. Like knowing that he at least knows my name is enough to know that he knows that I'm investing in his project and vice versa. But
so maybe to move forward a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to move forward a bit.
I wanted to talk about more about the tools of the diversity and freedom and like the great equalization of being an entrepreneur in business. What type of social benefits are there to having small businesses? Like I've got a couple statistics pulled off of like ic.gc. Or .gov.ca, the government stats website. I can't remember exactly what it is.
The government have so many.
I actually wrote it down. ic.gc.ca. small businesses employed like 8.4 million individuals in Canada, which is 68.8% of the total private labor force in 2019. Another stat is between 2014 and 2019, small to medium-sized businesses were responsible for 35.8% of the net employment growth in the private sector, which increased approximately by just under 1 million jobs. And that contributed to about 41.9% of gross domestic product for the country, just speaking from Canada. So I guess what we're talking about is small businesses, just to qualify, is we should have done definition of terms at the start, but small businesses, we're talking about 100 employees or less. Medium-sized businesses could be 25 to 150 employees, whatever. The point is, we're just saying not the Royal Bank of Canada, which has over 1,000 employees, not PCL, which has over 1,000 employees. Small businesses and medium-sized businesses are basically businesses that either serve a city or a community, what we're talking about. So what types of benefits are there to society as a whole, or like the country or the nation as a whole, having more small businesses to encourage the lessening of income disparity and inequality?
Well, with regard to specifically income disparity and inequality, someone working is not someone is someone making money. And that sounds facile, but it's just straight up that. Like, you could be on EI, which is not going to push you up. You're not getting anything other than subsistence. Like, EI essentially is,
and it's barely even enough to live off of.
Yeah. And so it's enough to, it's supposed to be a safety net for people like entrepreneurs who, whose business fails, and they use that while they work their next business magic. And, but someone who's working is someone who's, allowing for more opportunity. And so when we make it easy for people to start a business, then people are going to, from every stripe, are going to start. There's always going to be people from every neighborhood that are going to come up with something. And I got an idea, whether it's like a bong shop in the middle of the worst neighborhood. That's still someone who's hiring someone. Now, their character,
more shawarma.
We can never have
too much shawarma.
Oh, I miss ShawarmaCon in Winnipeg. Oh boy, do I ever. That was the best shawarma shop in the city. Anyway, the other thing is that, and this is kind of going to be a less subtle one, is that entrepreneurship shows us what works and what doesn't. It's a testing ground. So if someone starts a business and it's an obvious failure, fewer people are going to be likely to do it. Making entrepreneurship of others aren't going to follow that. So you're going to have, it acts as a bit of a sacrificial lamb.
Like a useful data point.
Yeah, it's a useful data point. But even though it doesn't feel like that, no one wants to be that. Well, I'm going to try.
Nobody wants to be the lamb.
Yeah. But everyone sees themselves as a success, which is exactly the way it should be, because they very well could be. You're gambling to some extent, but you're gambling with your hard work, which makes it not too much of a thing. And if you fail, it's because it was a bad idea and not because you failed. Well,
or you learn why you failed or how you could have done better next time. Or
we all come up with bad ideas. Like, I have you get an idea. It's like, oh, I got this great idea.
We should start a podcast.
Yeah, I'll start a podcast. Yeah. So if you'd like to donate, I have a mailbox, I guess.
We'll give you a tax receipt.
Oh, jeez. Don't get me started on tax receipts. It does show us what works, and it doesn't and I guess the third point is as part of my first point, is that it doesn't discriminate. Like, you don't need to be a white business suit owner, waspy guy that, people seem to hate for no reason, to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be this or that. You can start a business. The only thing you need is capital, and sometimes not even that. Well,
most labor jobs, you don't even need that.
Right. And some people might argue, well, banks are going to be less willing to give money to minorities. And the thing is that money doesn't work like that. Now, a bank might not give you a loan because, maybe they actually are racist. So what do? You go to a different bank and you say, that bank was racist.
Well, there's sort of an issue with that because it's down to like the districting. You know what I mean? When people live in a certain area and a certain area is predominantly a certain group of people. And if the bank deems that area to be higher risk and starts charging higher interest, what you're essentially doing in practice is racist. But the math is just the math. If there's just a higher rate of default in that community, then that's just what it is. Whether it looks bad or not, that's just the case. But I think that's more a problem with the way banks are doing the equations to calculate risk. It shouldn't be based on people's location, because you could be living somewhere just because you had nowhere else to live. Or you could be living somewhere temporarily because you're really responsible and you're starting a business.
Right. And the uncomfortable truth about
to overpay for rent right as you start your business. So it kind of makes sense to be in a poverty area when you're starting out.
Yeah. But the thing is that the unfortunate other side of that is that those neighborhoods do actually suck and are have a higher degree.
Nothing about the person.
Not full. Sorry. I'm sorry. Not full of people, because statistically, the amount of people that are garbage in those are still a small minority. They just do a greater amount of the nonsense, and then they pull others in that probably would have been able to do something with their lives into their nonsense. I'm looking at you, drug entrepreneurs, drug dealers, which is a business. Let's not get that wrong. It is a business.
Very lucrative one too.
It's a very lucrative one, but so are a lot of businesses that cause harm. And so it's run like a business. And there's a lot of,
we're talking about supporting small businesses. We should be encouraging banks to not discriminate between areas or geolocation or anything like that. Like, it should be based strictly on the individual.
And I think a lot of what the government's doing is, they're swinging around hard because they're like giving, a lot of.
Well, they're issuing bad loans though, because they've got quotas to
they're
fill.
getting a lot of like social justice stuff out. Like, we're going to support Black businesses, which I'm like
all in favor. Yeah,
I'm in favor, but at the same time,
how
it's
they go about it is ridiculous.
Yeah, and like if you look at that ic.gc.ca, there's 3 Black people on the front cover there because they want to show themselves supporting and equalizing this type of stuff. Now, whether or not that's going to work or not, trying not to be racist.
I do think that's good for the youth.
It's so easy to be racist these days. All you have to do is be white. No, sorry.
I do think it's good for the youth to see Black people in prominent positions. That way they know that it's achievable to them. Like, the's a very latent and subtle psychology behind it.
Well, in Canada, Black people are...
the idea of tokenizing somebody's skin color.
Well, in Canada, this is what I find weird, is that in Canada, Black people were just kind of normal middle class for like my entire life. They were never the underclass in Canada. They were either the ones who had the smarts and wits to get out of the South and through the Underground Railroad, which took a bit of cunning.
Or refugees from Africa.
Refugees, but most of them were just simple, just immigrants coming in like our families did just later.
My neighborhood was only refugees. There was just tons of refugees.
The refugees came later.
Rwanda and Zimbabwe, Zaire,
Congo. A lot of the Black people when I was growing up they were all businessmen. And they were just like oh, you're Black. Like, cool. Yeah. What does your dad do? It's like, I don't know. He's rich or something. So like Black people weren't this thing. Now, but for Canada, we have the Aboriginal population, which is like in the States. Yeah, the Black population has the exact same problems as the Aboriginal population. Don't yell at me.
No, they definitely
different,
do.
But they're in the similar situation.
And same with that latent racism and that districting and all those problems with the banks. They apply, like in the States, the red line districting was really bad against the Black and Hispanics, but the Aboriginals in Canada face the exact same types of things with reserve lands. And
now, to be fair, if your town is on the edge of the Arctic Circle, there's more than just racism you have to deal with. There's the fact that like any business that you are going to start has to deal with the worst supply chain spot on the planet. It's like, what if I started a business in Siberia? Well, unfortunately, you're breaking one of the rules of entrepreneurship, which is location. Well, it's not my fault I was born here. No, we're not subsidizing an idea, because the whole idea is that it has to exist in competition. Yes, your place does need food. You're going to have to do more than just open a store up there. Unfortunately, because of your location, you have to be more creative than if you're opening a restaurant in Edmonton or something. If you're in Fort Smith or like Tuktoyaktuk or something, and I got this idea, there's not very many people here, but I think we can still pull off some restaurant. Like if you're an indigenous food restaurant, and I'd be like, an indigenous food restaurant, do it. Okay, yeah, but it's not in Edmonton. Okay, hold up. Okay, an indigenous food restaurant in Edmonton, you can do that. Mm-hmm. There's probably a bunch of them. Probably not, because like even indigenous people like Thai food and sushi. That's cross-cultural, man. But if you want to open one up in like Fort Smith or Yellowknife, well, Yellowknife's an easier one. Okay, but you want to do it in
Dawson City or something. Like
yeah, something absurdly far like that. Your problem isn't racism. Your problem is location. So you have to be more creative. So maybe team up, have a synergy with the local, airport or something, because food's going to be expensive, and you want to get that. The problem is that you have to now think of, how can I get this to my customer, which is, how can I make this affordable for people in Yellowknife? Now, the thing is that it's easier to make things affordable for people in Edmonton or Winnipeg or, Vancouver, maybe not Vancouver, just jack the price. But
you can get away with a lot in Vancouver. Like some beer stores in Vancouver charge like $20 a pint for a beer.
Yeah. So I think the problem is that entrepreneurs have to deal with things that are beyond what a normal person would have to deal with in this. Now, creativity and now anybody can use money. Boom. Money is cross-cultural. Everyone can use it. This is a bonus. Use this as, like, you guys shouldn't be throwing away money, because money doesn't care what color the hand is holding it is in. Now, the other thing is you have to deal with certain things that also don't care what color you are. Distance, saturation of your idea in the market,
supply chains,
whether or not your idea works. It's like, well, the math doesn't check out. Yeah, but it's a good idea. It's a neat idea, but the math doesn't work. It's not going to happen. Your invention is a rock. I'm sorry. And so these are the things you have to deal with. If you open a store, but 13 other people have the same idea at the same time, and 13 other people, like, you remember when weed got legal, and all of a sudden there's just 50 bong stores up, and then 45 of them died within a week. Well, what happens. Just like, ideas don't happen in a vacuum. You look at I guess Matt Ridley's book, this one here, the yellow one, he just says, like, ideas happen. Multiple people come up with the same ideas originally at the same time, because it's just kind of, they're ripe to be picked off of the innovation tree. And so just because you have it doesn't mean someone else isn't having it. So like, you have all these hurdles that you have to go. And if you're far away, or if you're in a bad neighborhood, or if you're in a neighborhood, honestly, that might be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. How can you use that to your advantage? Well, you're in a neighborhood full of refugees. Well, I bet they want to eat food from their homeland. And
or maybe they need to speak to somebody in Arabic.
Maybe you know how to make clothes that they would think is, they want to wear clothes that are a bit more tailored to their different
culture,
not foreign, their cultural tastes.
Cultural couture.
And so you want to, start a clothing shop for them, because, there's nothing else here. And so you can see, but the key to every single aspect of entrepreneurship is you have to put thought in. And you have to think about it through. You have to grok the problem, and you have to find the problem. It's not you're not starting with the idea, you're starting with nothing. And maybe you have money.
And I think that's the better way to start a business too. To think of where there's a need and how to fulfill a need, rather than saying, what do I want to do every day for a living, and then trying to force that to work. I think it's a lot easier for somebody to start a business where there's already a demand for that service. Like you were saying, if you see like 5 houses in a row on one street and all the lawns are too tall, and you know that you can do one next door to the other much more efficiently than driving around town to different. You might give a cheaper rate to these people because you can do 3 or 4 and just hope that you get, but that creativity sparked from a known demand, as opposed to saying, I want to be a singer for a living and then trying to find somebody to pay you to sing. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier to fulfill a demand that's there than to create a demand somewhere else.
Well, we see this in innovation. Like you have that one guy who is picking up garbage in rivers in third world countries who just use the river as a garbage bin. And he's just invented this little conveyor belt boat that picks it up real quick and just kind of is half automated. And then he takes all the plastic and he's also using this thing to clean up the oceans. He's got this big rig thing that cleans up all the stuff in the oceans, because he saw there's a bunch of garbage in the oceans the size of, Australia. And it's just like, he didn't see like, what a tragedy. How could we do this to our planet? He's like, sounds like someone needs to clean that up.
Or plant a flag, one or the other.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah.
Name the country.
Garbage-topia. All hail King of the Trash. But, and he's now selling, but he's picking up all this plastic, which he's now recycling. And now he's selling the plastic to make the thing profitable. How can I make picking up garbage profitable?
Or what can you turn out of that garbage? You know what I mean?
You
can also create
like
things with the plastics or
cheap, like he's selling like cheap clothing and stuff out of the thing. He's selling it to like anybody who needs plastic is like, he can sell stuff to that. Or it's the same with there's smog in the atmosphere. Well, we have carbon capture technology. Now what is something that we need in a lot of our technology? Carbon. Where can we get it? The atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And you see like they have like cubes of carbon and they're like, I can sell this for tons of money.
Well, especially things like graphite or refined graphene or something like that. Like these new super materials. What's that?
The cubic zirconias, but yeah, like industrial stuff, like that's small. Like making fake diamonds is small pennies, but there is like industrial uses for diamonds. But like carbon is super useful. There's a reason why we're made of it. And so
that's sort of like the other thing moving forward. The best businesses of the future are going to be those types of businesses where people are repurposing trash or refuse or garbage or things like that.
The ones that solve today's problems are going to be the businesses of the future. And
it won't be like a sexy like title or anything that does it. It's going to be like, I grind up tires and make graphene that people make spaceships out of. You know what I mean? Or like, I'm going to make a space tether or something that stretches from orbit all the way to Earth out of carbon nanotubes that repurposed from plastics that are pulled out of the ocean or whatever.
Well, there's not a scarcity of materials, but we're just not mining them. There's a shortage. And
it's an energy thing too.
So when the price goes up for like, there's like copper and nickel and everything you need in the Arctic, we're just not getting it because the price of the initial price is so high. Now, when the price goes up,
ecological destruction too. Is a big part of it.
But we have better mining techniques than we've ever had in the past. Who knew fracking was actually going to be beneficial for the environment? No one saw that coming. But
Canada did. We were like the first in the world to do it. Really well.
And the price has to go down for a lot of these things, but there's opportunity there. So, but like if the price doesn't go down and we're not just mining these huge deposits, I don't know, landfill reclamation of copper and steel, it's there. It's just sitting there. Go get it. But
here's the thing though, once energy stops becoming a scarce resource, once there's an abundance of renewable energies and we're looking places to just spend energy, we're going to be able to use a lot of that garbage and stuff in transportation, logistics, supply chain management, all of that stuff's going to be a lot more prominent to a business, in my opinion, just looking forward, because when energy is not a concern, the biggest cost of transportation is wiped out.
Yeah.
And then you've got automated self-driving cars and electric vehicles and buses that are even running off like hydrogen and stuff now.
You can just charge them with the nuclear reactor.
Yeah, but yeah, once you have an abundance of energy, you can start doing things like carbon capture, desalination plants. You can start irrigating crops and like creating farmlands where there were no farms before. And then this land that you bought for 10 grand is now worth 110 grand because it's not arid anymore. It's arable.
Yeah. And I think
creating beneficial products, like that generative process of small businesses, I think is what's most important. It's that creative aspect and the tolerance to risk, because there's always that inherent risk involved in any enterprise.
I think one of the last things I want to get into is the fact that all these things that we're talking about, you have an idea for a hydroponic farm prototype. Why do you need to ask permission to start the business and do it? Don't ever ask for permission to start something that you think would be beneficial for society. Well, the government, deal with the government later. It's like doing something at school and then you get in trouble for it, even though you knew it was good. You can deal with the principal later. Like, who cares? You did something that you thought was right. I remember getting into a fight. So you're late
for class. Like saving a cat from a tree so you're late for class.
Yeah, or I remember defending myself from bullies, and I threw punches back and I got in trouble for defending myself. And I was just like, this is not a punishment. Like, I don't feel bad about doing this. I will not, throw fists in anger. It's like, I'm going to do it. Like, just making me write lines about it. And I'm like, I was grade 5, I think. And I didn't feel bad about it. I just, something's happening. So I dealt with it. And frankly, I was very small, and so I didn't have much capacity to deal with it. But the thing is that I didn't need to ask permission. It's like, oh, this guy's fighting me. Should I fight back? And they go, no, I'll deal with this. Thank you for coming to me. You did the right thing. It's like going to the school monitor was not the right thing to do. The right thing to do in that situation was throw my own punch. And this, to me, is the essence of what you want to do as an entrepreneur. You don't get permission, just do it. And all you need to do, because if you think you can do it and you think it'll work, just go ahead and do it. And I think we put a lot of fake barriers up in our thing. Like there's definitely like things that are in our way, zoning laws that mostly don't make sense. Like, yeah, you don't want to put a rifle range near the
daycare center.
Well, near a daycare. Well, no, there's a giant oil rig processing facility over here. If I make better. Yeah, so you're not allowed to have any like ranges facing that thing. Duh. No lead processing facilities near residential areas. That'd be a good idea. But like, this is
preferably push the mushroom farms outside of town, please. Like, why do you keep that? The Winnipeg thing. It smells like crap every summer when it gets hot.
Yeah. So some of them make sense, but most of them don't. Like, let them put a thing there, and like having city council decide whether or not it'd be good to have another business here or there. And like, you have a bunch of businesses, like, why don't those businesses, like, if we're going to punish people for starting a business, then, that's going to not solve inequality right there. But
even with my apartments, when I ran my small businesses, all of my apartments for all of my businesses, I had to have them rezoned so that I could operate in my apartment legally. Because if I didn't, then my insurance wouldn't have covered blah, 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 blah. So like my professional errors and omission liability insurance required that my place was temporarily zoned for part commercial use, even though it was just a 1-bedroom apartment that I was paying for out of pocket.
How much is
so
that?
Like those types of rules are ridiculous.
Did you have
because
to pay
they never
for that?
get denied. It's just an administrative process.
Like, you invested your time in changing that, which time could be better spent in, doing your business.
Yeah, when you look around, nothing changes. Like, you're still in the same apartment doing the same work, and you don't have customers coming in and out. Like, nothing changed at all.
But you spent 8 hours.
And there's an administrator who gets paid full time to do that.
Yeah.
like receive these requests and process them.
Yeah.
But there's no data that comes from it. Like there's no net gain. There's just a rule that's in place and nobody changes it because it's always been there.
Yeah. So I think that we work better as a society when we exercise that freedom. And sometimes that freedom is a bit, we butt heads, but that's through conflict we grow stronger. And if you can demonstrate before you get zoning that your hydroponic building will work and will feed everybody, then everyone's gonna, then the person shutting you down will become the villain. And you'll probably get people knocking at your door being like, yeah, you did that thing. What if I give you $2 million to do it again in my area? Demonstrate your worth. People are going to be knocking down at your door. They're going to be coming at you with a battering ram to throw money at your face. And it may not be something as big as that. If you show yourself to be the best damn baker in Winnipeg, and you open a bake shop, but it fails, but people taste it and it's like, dude, you want to come work for my restaurant? I need a baker. It's there. Your entrepreneurship, now you're working for somebody else, but you've shown your worth. It's a resume to the world. And if it succeeds, well, that's a different career path that you've just happened. You have to be open to that, but you're never going to know if you don't do it. And life's not going to happen unless you push yourself forward. And so, I don't know. So the spirit of entrepreneurship.
My only final thoughts on that would be, oh, sorry, I cut you off there.
They can rewind and listen to it again.
My only final thoughts to that would be along the same lines with that, but more stressing the education factor, because I think the best education I ever got was just trying to start businesses for the sake of seeing where they would take me. Not everything has to be all in, all or nothing. You can do a part-time business on the side where you're, blowing glass or making beads or, doing a little painting, gutter cleaning, like I said, just strictly labor stuff that if you're young and capable and able-bodied, that you could be doing, you should be doing anyway, just to pad your retirement projects while you're
slippers.
capable.
I bought these from an entrepreneur.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the other thing, is supporting local business. If you can buy bread from a baker next door who knows you versus some truck that just bakes 1,000, preservative Wonder Breads and drops them off at, every Safeway and McDonald's everywhere across the country. Not to say that other bread is bad, but just support local and the money stays local. They'll pay taxes locally and those local taxes will help subsidize you when your business fails or whatever. Like if you need EI or something, that their contributions help with that.
Well,
whereas international imports,
when you buy local, Winnipeg and Edmonton aren't running concentration camps. When you buy from China,
that's the thing. And really nobody's going to be hurting for paying an extra $1 on a loaf of bread, except for people who are super poor, obviously shouldn't be supporting anybody but themselves. Like it's not their job to support local businesses, but anybody who can afford to, just for the small things like candies and, shoes or hats or clothes.
One last thought though, is that on that,
I haven't finished my last thoughts yet.
Okay, sorry.
Jackass.
No, but it comes out of that.
Just kidding.
Okay. But you are when you're applying to a job, you're literally selling yourself. And so what's happening is sort of a bit of an entrepreneurial aspect. And we need to think about hiring ourselves out like this, instead of just being like, oh, I'm working for them and they're in control of everything. And no, I'm gracing them with my effort. And whether or not you're good will be for them to decide. But the fact that you're going in there, like when you go into an interview, you're buying them as much as they're buying you. And that's something a lot of interviewees don't realize, is that they go into it like it's a date that they don't deserve. It's like, oh, you're just the prettiest girl. Why don't you? We should.
That's a really good analog for it.
So you need to go in there like, we want each other. Let's just do this. And that it's like, it sounds cocky, but if you can actually back it up, like it's okay to be cocky if you can back it up. That's one of the things.
Even if you can, I think that's how you learn to back it up, is when you get caught out, when you're trying to be cocky and they catch you out. It's like, that's the realization. Oh, I need to learn a little bit about that, or how to deal with that.
I've got all these books behind me Jordan didn't read them. It's like, prove that you actually read them. Okay. I can back up the fact, like I can just buy books and put them behind me. Like that's easy. It's actually having read them and knowing which ones where, and having like, I do need to read a couple of them again actually, but I can back it up. So when you are when you're getting a job, don't think of it as like, oh, now I can just do this and not think about it. It's like, no, you are acting entrepreneurially. You're not like starting a business you still have this product that you are vending out to the world. It's your thing. And you need to think about it like that. You don't need to just sit around and doing it. The thing is that you can make the product better. You can enhance the product. The product can go into, you can get sick and your product becomes, it has to go into hiatus or something, but you are still selling something. And so when we think about ourselves entrepreneurially, you can put yourself, it's like, oh, I got to get better to do this. So I have to make my product better. I have to do, I do deserve this job or to work for this company because, my product is that good. Your brand is, I hate people when they say it like that because it's just, everything's marketing. That still bugs me. But I think we're all, in an essence, in a free society, entrepreneurs, because you are always selling. You're always trying to engage in the market with what you have.
But I still do think that we are generally discouraged to start our own businesses. And that's probably because the loudest people in the economy are the biggest players. And it's in their best interest to have less competition and more employees.
Yes.
It's part of us. It's part of the onus is on us to realize that somebody else is going to try to profit from us. And it's not at some sinister evil or some type of demonic foul play. It's just the nature of business, and it's not personal. That's what they're there to do, is to turn a profit. And the way they do that is by turning labor into money. And your time and labor being converted into money is not evil. It's also making you productive and giving you the safety net that you want out of having an employment rather than starting your own business. So everything is reciprocal. Even if you don't like your job, you're still there because there is an agreement or an arrangement of give and take. Whether you like it or not, that's just the case and the way it is. And the reason why it's the way it is because that's the most successful way for humans to organize and operate. So in keeping with that, my last point was that what I've noticed from most of the people that I did consulting and who I've worked for and with is this sort of overarching mentality of seeking approval from somebody else. So it's almost like they want the other person to recognize the greatness of their business or the greatness of their products or the fruits of their labor, or to validate themselves. They want it from exterior to interior. And that's not the way to approach any business or life goal, just generally speaking.
Mental health or anything like that.
Right. You should be starting from the inside out. What do I want to project into the world? Why do I want to start a business? Well, I want the freedom, I enjoy the risk, and I want some extra money. Those are good reasons. What are some reasons not to start a business? I'm scared. That's a terrible reason. I don't have money. Scared. Pick a different business. I don't have the skills. Just start doing it till you know it. Most people get discouraged by bad reasons, and they're not encouraged because they're absent-minded of good reasons. So seeking approval from external factors, or what do you call them? Players, external actors. Is what I meant to say. Yeah. I think that should be squashed. We should stop doing that. And most of it's a mind game. It's a mentality that entrepreneurs have that makes them successful in most cases. There's also luck, because that's why the numbers are so bad. But if you get kicked down, just start again. Nobody's limited to one business per lifetime.
We call it luck, and luck is actually not a bad word for it. I don't believe in luck per se as oh, luck is with me. There's this god of fortune, Fortuna coming down and saying the dice shall roll like this.
Well, there is. If you set up a mobile nursing company before COVID, that would be super lucky. If you set up a brick building company right before COVID, that would be very unlucky.
Even though we know that the dice are being controlled by physics, we can't do the physics in our head, so we call that luck. And it's like by any other, it's the best word for it. So the market works, it's so complicated, and you can't know, even as something simple as a lawn mowing thing, you can't know the workings of the universe and of 6 billion economic actors all working in unison in like another 3 billion economic entities like companies and businesses and all that. And if you're mowing the lawn and all of a sudden there's a drought, how the heck could you have known? And so this is also why communism doesn't work. But at the same time, you have to be aware that you can't predict it, but you can do your best. And your best may not be good enough, but you know, if you don't roll the dice, you're never gonna win. You know, you miss 100% of the shots that you never take. Mm-hmm. So that's
and the more you fail, the more prepared you are to be a success. That's the way I see it. You should be looking forward to fail, so get it behind you so that your next project works.
Yeah. And you can, well, it's like falling. You just hit the ground better and then you get back up faster.
Yeah, learn to be bouncy.
Yeah, bouncy. But I think we've made a good case for entrepreneurship.
I hope so. Education is key.
Yeah. Hardness or anti-fragility.
Yes.
You can do this.
Anti-fragile, brother.
All right. You tell them where to find the rest of our stuff.
Yeah. RSS feed, same place as always. Check it out in the description. We've got, we're on YouTube. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on iTunes. Wherever you check your iTunes players, you can always just plug in that RSS feed and get all the latest and greatest from Frivolous Gravitas.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in.
Entrepreneurial idea. If you think we're handsome, email us and we'll sell you headshots and we'll sign them.
I'm not sure I'm down with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would sell.
Yours might. You've got the boyish charm plastered all over that mug.
Boyish charm. I'm getting old. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Tune in next week. Oh, what are we doing for next week? Do you have did we discuss a topic yet?
Yes. We might be doing do something difficult, which would come off of this one really well.
Okay. Something's in the works. I'm thinking we're either going to talk about like safety, corruption, or discipline and effort kind of thing.
If we talk about safety, it's going to be a very heavily Jordan rant centric.
At least it'll be full of humor too.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys around.
Bye.
Bye.